Wow, what a turnout. I'm really happy. Fabulous. Welcome. Great. Okay, so thank you so much for coming. Great. My name is Christine Essex and I am the organiser for the campaign in Hungerford. I'm the also the organiser for the campaign in Reading and Newbury. So I live in Hermitage near Newbury. I'm a teacher and a mum to 19-year-old Joseph, who's in his second year at Reading University at the moment. And Joseph is the primary reason why I do Just Stop Oil. Because scientists are sadly telling me that in his lifetime he will be facing drought, starvation and social collapse, which of course is totally unacceptable for any parent. So I have taken a break from teaching to do what I think is right for me as a mum. So I first would like to take an opportunity to thank Hungerford Hub for all their help and the library. It's very much valued. And I would then like to thank my amazing team, Bob, who is sadly sick tonight, so he can't be with us. Ben, put your hand up. This is Ben up front. Ren, well, I'm not sure if she's quite here yet. And Bill, give us a wave, Bill. Come on, you're not going to hide. Bill at the back, yes. Who turn out in all weathers to door knock and flyer and generally give me support, and they come from Reading to do that, so that's quite a hike. And Bill comes from Littlebed. And also Helen, who's not here tonight. So, so these people are a great help to me, and I couldn't do the job without them. I also want to thank my speakers, Roger, Stefania, and Heidi, for travelling from London tonight. And they will probably, at least two of them, have to leave before we have group discussions at the end. So each Just Stop Oil campaign is 4 weeks long, and it comprises of a talk in the first week, followed by a social in the second week, generally at a pub or something. And then in the third week, we have our second talk, which is happening tonight, followed by another social and what we call non-violent direct action training for those who want it in the fourth week. So this is following exactly the same pattern in this community. So before I go any further, can I ask, how many people here came as a result of seeing a poster? Not a flyer, a poster. One. Just one? That's fine. It all helps. Has someone got a pen on? I wrote it. Great. So one poster. Yes. How many came as a result of someone door knocking? Oh, you sure? Yeah. Oh my goodness. How many came as a result of getting a flyer?
Didn't get one, but I was
one, two. Well, stick those hands up. I can't see them. Two.
Yeah.
Oh, two. So, how many came as a result of social media?
Email count.
Email.
One, two.
Are you counting emails?
No, just social media. Any social media? No. Oh, one. One social media. Yeah. How many emails?
probably
Wow. One, two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Keep them up.
Oh.
12. 12. Yeah. And so, what other ways have I not covered?
word of mouth.
Word of mouth, yes.
Yeah.
How many word of mouth?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
New
8.
kind of word of mouth. I forwarded
Eight.
you the
8.
yeah.
Any other ways?
Local press.
Yes.
The
Local
Greenfest,
press.
I spoke to you at Greenfest.
Greenfest.
Newbury local.
Local
Local.
news.
Right, Greenfest.
Newbury today.
1.
Yeah.
Newbury Today.
Newbury today, yeah.
News.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
The
the news.
website,
Yeah, I know. Newbury Today.
Yep.
1. Is it? How many? 1? 2. Thank you, sir.
Two.
It all helps. 2 for Newbury Today. Anything else?
Yes, I walked past the library today and saw the leaflets. So.
Great. In the window.
Yeah.
Fab. I'm so glad that's worked. So, library poster. Great, thanks. Moving on fast. Lovely, that's really helpful. Right. So the format for this evening is that there will be a talk by our speaker, and then that will be followed by personal stories by Stefania and Heidi, who are supporters of Just Stop Oil who decided to take action. And personal stories will be followed by group discussion when we will outline the different ways, if you choose to, you can help Just Stop Oil. So one of the biggest ways that you can help is by giving us a regular donation. I'm sorry to talk money, but this is important to us. It costs a minimum of about 500 quid to put on an evening like this. And if you're able to donate, and I know times are hard, so I respect that, but if you're able to, then we are taking donations tonight via cash, card reader, and QR code. Okay, 3 ways. And the QR code is on the flyer. The back of the flyer you have. Okay? Great. So, moving on. Right. So, also, and for reasons which will be explained by Roger, we are also asking people to gently start to consider doing 36 hours of civil resistance with the possibility of arrest. I appreciate also that what you're going to hear tonight will not be easy listening, but I encourage you to stay to the end of the evening where you can share your feelings with those around you, which will be helpful. I would also like to say that supporters of Just Stop Oil have access to a whole selection of services to enhance physical and mental health provided by qualified professionals. They're all qualified. And if you decide to join us, please use the email address on the flyer. Should be on at the end, under my name. Yep. To contact me, and I can put you in touch with any service you need. Okay? So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Roger, and I'd like to give a quick biography before you come up. So Roger is a well-known rebel and someone with first-hand experience of civil resistance. He researched the dynamics of mass mobilisations at King's College in London for 5 years and was at the forefront of climate campaigning for many years. He is the co-founder of Extinction Rebellion, probably the world's most high-profile climate crisis movement. His actions are grounded in a belief that peaceful public disruption is effective and justified completely in the face of social collapse and the crisis as the crisis escalates. Roger has been involved in many acts of civil disobedience, leading to over 30 arrests and 3 periods of imprisonment. Roger is also the author of Common Sense for the 21st Century, Only Non-Violent Rebellion Can Now Stop Climate Breakdown and Social Collapse. So that is quite a small book, but key to his theories, and I recommend you all go out and buy it straight away. Okay, there's a quick plug. Right, so, off you go, Roger.
Great, thanks very much. Well, I sort of feel like Christine's told you everything, and not much more to say really.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that.
At most places people say, is this guy coming to talk to you, and I can start. Anyway. Yeah, so thanks very much for coming. Thanks very much for having me in Hungerford. I've never been to Hungerford before, so that's great. I've been to lots of places. I've done about 100 of these talks. I haven't done this talk for about a fortnight, so I'm a little bit worried that I'm going to forget it, but I have got it here. So, as was just said, I'm one of the co-founders of Extinction Rebellion, which I'm sure many of you have heard of, and it started with 15 people in a cafe in Bristol, and as you can imagine, it felt little bit mad saying we were going to rebel against the British government. But guess what? It sort of took off and 200,000 people joined in the following year. Became the biggest social movement in modern British history, spread to 70 countries and what have you. So as a result of that, for better or worse, I've got to speak to many of the world's top scientists. And I actually have 170 pages of statistics at home, dare I say it, which I could run through with you, but you'll be glad to know I'm not there to do that. What I am going to talk to you about is, well, I'm going to start off telling a little story that sort of puts things a little bit into perspective maybe, which is that I was invited to talk debate at the Cambridge Union. Do people know this? It's the oldest debating society in the world, apparently, at Cambridge University. So as you can imagine, it was quite prestigious and slightly scary. So I did a lot more preparation for that than this talk tonight. No disrespect. Okay. So I did it with this guy called Rupert Reed, who you might have heard of. He's a sort of philosophy professor, so you should know what he's talking about. So we did lots of preparation, as you can imagine, right? Big responsibility, big debating thing, you know, Victorian Hall, 300 of the most intelligent students in the world, arguably, blah, blah, blah. So we had it all down, we had our facts and figures, we had our arguments, who was going to say what, blah, blah, blah. So we go into this hall with all these super intelligent students, and the other side have put up against us a fashion commentator and a business lecturer. Okay, so that was a little bit of a letdown. So we started, you know, why the climate crisis is the biggest crisis since whenever. And then they did their bits. And what I want to tell you, maybe you don't believe this, but it's true, that in all the presentations of the people speaking against us, they did not mention one single fact about the climate. Okay? Not a single fact about what is actually going on here. And we won, thankfully. So they did talk about people that drink soy milk, you know, all that sort of thing. Yeah, all those. All right, so I'm saying this to you because before I start talking tonight, I just want to make a little bit of a contract with you, which is I'm not here tonight to entertain you with little stories and, you know, bits and pieces. I'm here because what we're dealing with is beyond serious, okay? And if something's beyond serious, I suggest you want to know what's going on. In other words, you want to know what's true, okay? So I'd like to suggest there's 3 ways you find out whether something's true. First of all, you want to know what has been said by the world's top experts, right? That seems reasonable, doesn't it? Right? You don't want any old guy. You don't want Roger Hallam, for God's sake, right? Forget about me. You want to know what the top guys in the world are saying on the climate, don't you? That's what you're here tonight to find out. Number 2 is you want to know the raw data. You want to know the physical facts. What's actually happening, okay? And if you're particularly clever, I'm sure some of you are, you'll probably know you want to know what the peer-reviewed papers say, right? So if you're not familiar with that phrase, peer-reviewed papers is the top gold standard science. It's not just some scientist writing in The Guardian or something. It is like peer-reviewed, blind peer-reviewed. In other words, if it's no good, it doesn't get published. So I'm going to be focusing on those things, right? Not about what soy milk I drink. See what I'm saying? And you might like to, you know, just to get us in the mood a little bit, I'm sure we're all familiar with these stories, you know, of people going to the doctor and they've got a lump in their body and you don't know what it is, and you conjure up that courage, or you know someone who does, and they go to the doctor and you say, have I got cancer? You don't want the doctor to be telling you some like story. right? You want his expert opinion, right? You want to see the X-ray, don't you? You have a legal right to know what the expert opinion is because it's serious. So that's what we're going to do. And then you can decide what you want to do on the basis of objective information. Yeah? So let's get going. Only takes about 15 minutes. But in the next 15 minutes, you are going to hear the most important information you're ever going to hear in your life. Which sounds dramatic, doesn't it? But it is, because it is. I'm going to talk about 1.5 degrees, I'm going to talk about 2 degrees, and I'm going to talk about that all-important question, how long have we got? 1.5 degrees. So, 7 years ago, there was the Paris conference. Is everyone familiar with this? Do you remember that? Paris conference, fantastic. It's going to get sorted out. We're going to stay under 1.5. All the world scientists, diplomats, you know, can you remember it all being on telly? 7 years we've had of going, we can stay under 1.5, we've got to do XXXXX, it's still there, we can do it, you know, every week. So an article came out last year by 3 of the world's leading scientists in The Conversation magazine, which is a prestigious online magazine. You can only write in it if you're a professor and all that sort of thing. These three of the world's leading scientists, I've spoken to 2 of them personally, right? And it said in this article the following. It said, at the Paris Agreement of 2015, you ready? At the Paris Agreement of 2015, we did not know of a single scientist who thought it was possible to stay under 1.5 degrees. Has everyone got that? 7 years ago, 3 professors writing in public in a prestigious magazine have declared that no one thought it was possible 7 years ago. So what's been going on for 7 years? All those kids, you know, going around Sydney and Berlin and London with follow the science, stay under 1.5. Well, I'll let you work that one out. Let me give you 2 or 3 other data points. Last year, Chatham House produced a report. You may not have heard of Chatham House, but it's Britain's most prestigious foreign affairs institute, so it's hardly a bunch of radicals, okay? They produced a report which said the chances of staying under 1.5 degrees is 1%. 1%. Which, if you know anything about academia and research institutes, you know what that means is it's not going to happen. Okay? And like, when I was at King's College, I was a sociologist, right? Lecturer, not lecturer, researcher. Where did that come from? And this is like super basic social research, right? If you want to know the truth, you don't ask someone in public, obviously. You get them to fill in an anonymous survey, don't you? Yeah? So a bunch of sociologists did this. They got 200 of the world's top scientists to write whether they thought we were going to go under 1.5. 94% of these 200 scientists said we're going over 1.5. You getting the idea? Right? Just to put a nail in the coffin, probably the world's most famous climate scientist, James Hansen. Have you heard of this guy? He's the guy in 1990 that said to the UN, if you carry on putting carbon into the atmosphere, we're going to destroy civilization 32 years ago. So he's not happy. So what did he say after COP last year? He said the idea of going on over 1.5 degrees is unadulterated bullshit. Okay? So being smart, Hungerford people, you're going to be going, that tells me 2 things. Number 1, we're going over 1.5. But probably more importantly, why the hell are the world's top most prestigious scientists swearing in public? Right, that's the smart question, isn't it? Well, we know why. Because they've been telling us for 30 years, right, that if we continue to allow governments to put carbon into the atmosphere, we're going to be done for. And if we're not done for, our kids will be done for. And surprise, surprise, last week, the UN finally admitted, after 7 years of systematic deception, that 1.5 is no longer credible. Right? That's UN speak for it was never going to happen. So I'm telling you all this so that you can start remembering that we're being systematically lied to. Because why the hell were those scientists 7 years ago saying, hello, global public, we are going over 1.5. We know why, right? Don't we? They wanted everything to stay in control. We want everyone to still relax, don't think about it. And here we are, 7 years later, sorry, we're going over 1.5. So is that enough on 1.5? Don't want 20 more data points? It's done, right? Ordinary people get that in 5 minutes. I talk to, like, you know, elite figures, I can talk to them an hour and they're still going, yeah, but there's still a possibility. You know how stupid these people are? Seriously. So let's do 2 degrees. What do we know about 2 degrees? What we know about 2 degrees is it's a rubbish statistic. Okay? There is a thing called rubbish statistics, isn't there? Why is it rubbish statistic? Because it's the global average temperature increase, right? So the globe, as we probably know, is 70% sea. Human beings, last time I looked, don't live on the sea, they live on the land. So it's a stupid statistic. If we want to know about temperature increase, we want to know the temperature where people live, don't we? We don't want to know what it is in the middle of the Atlantic. So, as it happens, according to peer-reviewed papers, right? Peer-reviewed papers, I've spoken to the professors that wrote it, right? 30 years in the trade, world-famous climate scientist. At 2 degrees centigrade, where people actually live, it's going to be more like 7 degrees. Does that sound a bit more like real? What's it been like this October? Yeah? Now, if the world's public knew in 2015 that 1.5 was done, and we're actually heading over 7 degrees when it's 2, maybe there'd be a little bit more things going on, wouldn't there? Because I remember after that conference came out, and I'm sure you thought it as well, you know, I'm a foreigner from Wales, so I was like hoeing my carrots, and you know, I had that little thought in the back of my mind. I was going like 2 degrees. It's not that bad, is it? I'm sure some of you thought that. 2 degrees? No, it's 7. Well, that's a bit, you know, that's the average. That's not what it is on a hot day. On a hot day, it's 20 degrees, right? It's 40 degrees temperature, like it was this summer. You get the idea? So that's number one. Number two is, in this paper, when they talked about it, it's called The Future of the Human Niche, just in case some of you think I'm talking rubbish, I'm going to look it up. Right? It's a peer-reviewed paper, gold standard science, 12 pages long. Just read it after this event, if you want. So what did they say in that? They're courageous to say that 2 degrees centigrade, there will be 1,000 million people unable to live where they're living today. This is when it starts getting a little bit not about polar bears. You know what I'm saying? Right? Plenty of people in this audience over 50, no disrespect, including me, but we remember, don't we? You know, the climate crisis in the 1990s, polar bears, ice, you know, looking after poor nature. No, right? What this is about is 1,000 million refugees, right? In the next 2 decades, right? That's dozens of Pakistans, right? That's like 200 Ukraines. There were 50 million refugees at the end of World War II. So what's that? 20 World War IIs. In a decade. Maybe a bit before, right? You never know. Maybe a little bit after. Now, at King's College, where I did research, there's a War Studies department, and guess what? People from the War Studies department aren't here tonight. But they could tell you precisely what 1,000 million refugees looks like, because they spend 30 years studying these things. So I'll tell you what it looks like, right? It's like Syria, times 100, right? There were 5 million refugees internally in Syria, 500,000 of them were dead. So give or take, you're looking at 100 million deaths. I mean, it's not like all these people are going to get up, you know, and politely move out of Central America or Central Africa or India, is it? Right? Let's be realistic. The biggest example of social collapse since World War II is the Congo. In the early 2000s, 5 million people died, 2 million women were raped. Right? I'm a social scientist. It's my responsibility to come to you tonight and tell you the facts. Those are the facts. Rape, slaughter, starvation. On a scale unknown in human history in the next 20 years, according to peer-reviewed science. Right? That's why hundreds of thousands of people around the world are taking action. It's as simple as that. Right? This is not some, you know, little environmental campaign. It's not about a polluted river in Hungerford. Is it? This is off the scale. Off the scale. So let's hear from another world famous scientist, right? You want a top expert? Let's listen to Johan Roström. So he's the director of the Potsdam Institute, like the leading research institute in Europe, advises the Pope, the German government, okay? It's the main show. What does the director of that institute say? What he says is if you go over 2 degrees, guess what? You're going to go over 3. And guess what? At 3 degrees, there'll be 2 million refugees, 2 billion refugees, right? 4 degrees, half the world will be uninhabitable. It doesn't stop, right? This is a ball down the hill. Don't go out of this meeting tonight thinking the climate crisis is something like Hitler or slavery, right? Obscene as they were. With Hitler, you got rid of him and it stopped. That's not the climate crisis, okay? This isn't slavery, obscene as it was, right? You've got slavery, you stop it. If you don't stop slavery this year, it carries on next year. You understand what I'm saying? That is not the climate. The climate is you get it or you've lost it for 100,000 years. So how long have we got before we've lost it? Well, do you want to listen to me, right? I'm just a farmer from Wales. Really, not that important. Listen to the third leading world expert. So you've just heard from the top climate scientist in the States. You've heard from the top climate scientist in Europe. Let's hear from the top scientist in the UK. Who's he? Well, we could have a little argument about it, but arguably, he's Sir David King. Right, Sir David King is the former chief scientific advisor to the British government. Right? It's the sort of person that people in Hungerford look up to, isn't it? Right? He's a proper Oxbridge guy. 72 years old. He's done his stuff, right? He was the chief scientific advisor for years. You probably remember him. So what's he saying? Is he saying, yeah, we've got a bit of a problem, but relax everyone. You know, it's not going to be coming along until we're all dead. No, he's not saying that. Because he's a serious man. He's got responsibilities. So what he said last year is, we have to act quickly. Just remember that. We have to act quickly. In my view, we have 3 to 4 years to determine the future of humanity. He said that last year. Okay, let's do the little bit of maths. That's 2 to 3 years left. 2 to 3 years left, not from some maverick, right? Not from some internet, website, from the bloody top scientist in this country. Let's do a little bit of smart Hungerford analysis on this one then, shall we? What do you think the guy's actually saying? Right? We have had decades of nice, euphemistic bullshit from these people. The future of humanity. What do you think that means? When David Attenborough goes to COP and says, we're facing the end of civilization, what's that? Some sort of video game about the Roman Empire. You know what I'm saying? Right? What's he actually saying here? He's saying there's going to be mass rape, slaughter, starvation for 100,000 fucking years. That's what he's saying. Isn't it? That's what he means when he's saying the future of humanity. Like, this is our moment, right? We've had 30 years of pretty nice time, and now the shit's happening, right? Those of us that are old enough know what our parents went through in World War II, right? And their parents went through World War I. We thought we were going to escape, weren't we? We thought we were going to have a nice life, NHS was going to look after us, and we'd just like potter off. Tough. It hasn't worked out like this. You're in Hungerford Library listening to this guy saying the worst possible thing imaginable is about to happen and go on forever. That's what Just Stop Oil is about, right? It's not about oil and gas. It's about what the hell are we doing? Sitting here, letting this government just get on with it. Right? Carbon emissions have doubled in the last 30 years. Under our watch, we've allowed them to double. So what are we going to do? So, at this point in the talk, I used to do my little research bit, because I've studied how to mobilise people, campaigning, get people in the room, give them cups of tea, all that sort of stuff, right? But I don't really do that anymore because I spoke to this professor of theology at Durham, dare I say it, so we're just changing gear a bit here. And she said to me, Roger, forget all that. Right, the reason why people haven't done anything is because it's not going in. It's not connecting with their values. People don't respond to information. 1,000 million refugees, the apocalypse, catastrophe. She said, people act when they realise that their values have been violated. So I just want us to think for 5 minutes about what the hell do we actually believe in? I mean, do we believe in anything in this room? Maybe we don't. Well, maybe we do. Because if we believe in something, then presumably we believe in it, don't we? which means it can get violated and you do something when your values are violated. Like our parents. What did they say? What did they do for us? What did their parents do for them? What did their parents do for them? What would their parents have said if they said your grandchildren are going to sit in a room, be told that the world is ending, and then just walk out and go, well, they're not going to be that impressed. Are they? Not if you have parents like mine. You know what I mean? Like, there's a right and wrong in the world. That's why I'm standing in front of you today, right? That's what my mother told me. There's a right and wrong in this world, Roger. And if something's wrong, you do something about it. You don't go, well, that's a little bit inconvenient. You don't go, well, you know, I'm busy on Thursday night. You get on with it. And that's how this country was built, by that generation and the generation before them. They actually decided there was something worth living for. There's something more important than individual. There's certainly something more important than sitting by and seeing the destruction of our children, the destruction of this country, the destruction of the whole of this planet. Isn't that? Presumably. What about our kids? What about our young children? What about the 4-year-olds in Hungerford, for God's sake, right? You're out in the street. What's going to happen to them? Do you have any values about our children? Like, what's the fundamental value of every society over the last 10,000 years? Number one, look after the kids. What the hell are we doing? What the hell are we doing? We've just been told we're going over 1.5 degrees. Oh well, you'll be all right, guys. It's true, isn't it? That's what we're doing. It's shameful. That's what it is. You get the idea? If you in this room think you've got some values, then you've got some thinking to be done, right? If you haven't got any values, that's fine. There's plenty of nihilists in this country. You know, look at the government. Yeah? The reason why we're in this room, I suspect, is we all think we have some values. That's why we're here, right? You've got that leaflet, or someone told you something, and there's a little voice in your head going, better go to that. That's why people come to these meetings. It's fundamentally about self-respect. That's what Commodity Gray said, right? This is this theologian. It says the human being is fundamentally, right, all about self-respect. That's the single most important thing in our lives. Can we live with ourselves? Can you live with yourself if you walk out of this room tonight and go, oh well. It's about self-respect. So, like, don't get into your head, right? You're like nice people and you're doing something for those poor people over there in Pakistan, right? Or you're doing something for the poor kids. You're doing it for yourself, aren't you? It's about you and what you think about yourself and what you're going to think about yourself when you die. What the hell did I do? When I heard Roger Hallam, run for the door. You get the idea, don't you? I'm not going to carry on. I just think I'm some sort of mad preacher. But seriously, right, you know, that's the deal, right? I'm not going to patronise you all by rambling on for another hour about it. You know the deal, right? You know the deal. You're ordinary people. As I said, if I go and talk to the bloody, you know, editor of The Guardian or some bloody MPs, they haven't got a fucking clue. Seriously. They do not have a clue. I'm saying that as an empirical, like, social scientist, right? The people that are going to change things are the people that have always changed things in this country, which is ordinary people. It's down to you. And I mean the people in this room, right? I don't mean the 99% of people in Hungerford who saw the leaflet and went, you know, I got my favourite soap opera that night. Who cares about the next generation? It's always, right, a few people, and it's always those people that determine whether we fall into hell or not as a society. That's the story of the last 10,000 years. All right, so usually in my talk, I go through all this nice, impressive social science, how do you change society, here's some case studies, blah, blah, blah. I don't do that anymore, because, to be honest with you, right, you already know what to do. You see what I mean? Like, if you're in touch with your values, and you know how obscene this is, and you've looked yourself in the mirror tomorrow morning, it's not like you need me to tell you what to do. People have always known what to do. They go out and stop it by whatever means necessary. You see what I mean? If there was a fire down the road, we wouldn't have to have a lecture about what to do. We'd go like, let's go and stop the fire, guys. It's not complicated. Go and get the water, you bang down the door, you run up the stairs, you save the kids, right? Don't need an academic lecture on it. What I'm here to tell you is where the water is and where the door is. That's it. You can work out the rest. And that's what Just Stop Oil is, right? Just Stop Oil is the latest iteration of the most successful string of campaigns on the climate over the last 20 years. And they're all designed by the same bunch of people. So I'm not going to be falsely modest about it, right? Including me and a bunch of other people. Because we did research, right? Extinction Rebellion didn't come out of anywhere. It wasn't like Occupy, right? It wasn't like, let's go and do some stuff. It was like, how are we going to mobilise hundreds of thousands of people to get the government to act? That's on a piece of paper. Year and a half later, we worked it out, right? 10,000 people in London, 1,500 people arrested for the first time in their lives, right? Meetings with Gove, for God's sake. That wasn't a highlight. I didn't see him either. The British government declares climate emergency. 200,000 people joined it, spread to 70 countries in 3 months. The biggest climate influencer of 2019. Right? 2 years later, there's 3 of us in a room, we're just coming out of COVID, and we're going, what can we do? What can we do with, say, 150 people? Well, we can create a campaign, say we need insulation, because that's the biggest no-brainer thing that we should be doing, right? Go and look it up. So what can you do with 150 people? You sit on the M25 17 times in 7 weeks. And everyone hates you. And you're the most successful campaign for years. Because everyone hates you, right? You have to cause that disruption, right? That campaign went from 0 to 80% name recognition in 2 weeks. Right? The fastest name recognition campaign in British history. You getting the idea? That's why you have to knock the door down. That's how it works.
Have they
Right.
insulated any more homes though?
Ask me the question at the end. Good question though. All right, so what Just Stop Oil is doing, which is the third most impactful campaign of the last 5 years, is saying the British government has to stop its illegal activity of drilling for more oil and gas. So everyone in the world agrees is going to take us over 1.5. But I've just told you we're going over 1.5. Get this weird world we're in. So in other words, if you're smart, if you dig up more oil and gas, it's going to take us over 2, right? You get the idea? You always have to add a bit on. And 2,000 people have been arrested. 100 people have gone to prison. It's the biggest campaign since the suffragettes, right? I got the stats like this morning. Right, Just Stop Oil has been mentioned 3,000 times in the British press in the last month. Right? We've been on the Today programme, we've been on op-eds, right? Why is this? Because we caused disruption, because we knocked the door down. Right? I did 5 years of research on this. If I thought there was a chance in hell, right, that we could influence the British government by having a nice march, by sending a few petitions, I would be straight there, right? Right? I was a businessman for 30 years, right? You know, I was brought up to say, moderation in all things, Roger, work hard, keep your head down, everything will be fine. It's not going to be fine until a critical mass of people create peaceful, non-violent disruption, like people have done dozens of times in our history to get our rights today. There's nothing unusual about this, right? Like I met with like 20 top lawyers a month or so ago, right? Ex-judges, all that sort of thing, top QCs. They wrote a letter to the British government, 270 of them. They said, if you dig up more oil and gas, in other words, if you go over 1.5 degrees, you destroy the rule of law. And now they're going to write a letter saying if you arrest and prosecute people engaged in peaceful disruption on the climate, that is unconstitutional and illegal. Because in this country, it's legal to cause disruption to prevent evil. Right? It's British common law. Don't think for a minute I'm coming to you in Hungerford tonight to say go and break the law. No, 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 no. They're breaking the law. Right? They're normal human beings, right? They're not God. It's the government. It's just a bunch of people that decided that profit is more important than the continuation of life on this planet. And we're going, no, it's not. Sorry. So what's the plan? Huh? What's the plan? Want to know the plan, right? It's not like, oh, great talk, Roger. People always do that. Come up to me afterwards, you know, oh, fantastic talk, Roger, thanks very much. I'm going like, no, sorry, this is not a talk, right? We're not talking about butterflies, you know, in Berkshire. With all due respect. We're talking about actually getting something done. So the plan is after this little talk, you're going to hear some testimonies from people about what they've done. And the proposition is that you make a commitment to 48 hours of activity. That's 2 days. Okay? And you go to London. That's easy. You sit in a road. Right? Just remember those 3,000 newspaper articles. Because people are sitting in the road. They sit in the road. A police person comes up to you and they say, you shouldn't be sitting in the road. And you say, well, I am. And then he takes you off to a police van. And you go to a police station and they ask you lots of boring questions. And they put you in a cell. And yes, it's locked. And yes, you get 2 blankets and a curry and you can read your book. And if you're me, you have a nice nap. And then they let you out about 5 hours later. And they'll go, you're released under investigation, which is like technical language for there's so many people doing it, they don't know what to do. Right? And then you come home. And people like, you know, pat you on the back and say, it's really brave and all that sort of stuff. And once you've done that, guess what? You get to do it again. Because loads of people like it. Right? This is not 1941, you'll be glad to know. It's 2022. In 2029, it might be 1941, okay? At this stage in the game, that's what you have to do. According to the best social science. right? A whole load of people did it in Canada the other day, okay? They got to talk to the Chief of Staff, right, the British Columbia government. It works, okay? It works. Thousands of people went on motorways in Serbia, like before Christmas, last year. They changed the whole policy on digging up minerals in Serbia in 2 weeks. It works. Do not delude yourself, right, that you can't change the situation. This government does U-turns every 2 or 3 days. Have you noticed? Right? Why is it not doing a U-turn on 130 new oil fields? Because not enough people are creating enough pressure. Full stop. It's entirely within your agency to create change. And it's your responsibility. That's the hardest message tonight, right? It's pretty easy to know the world's going to end if you don't think you can do anything about it. But the fact of the matter is, you can, and you have to. In fact, you don't have any choice. I never used to say that to audience, which is a bit full on, isn't it? You don't have any choice. But think about it for a minute. This guy comes into Hungerford and says, you're going to have 1,000 million refugees, and it's going to go on forever. You don't have any choice, do you? Right? I mean, you know, if you're looking after an elderly relative, then don't do it, right? If you've just like got 2 small children, don't do it. If you're traumatised with the police, don't do it. 80% of these people in this room can do that. Let's be honest with ourselves. Okay. I'm going to finish on 2 little profound points, and then I'm done. First of all, it's all about community. Okay? It's not about you sitting here feeling all like in a tiz because this guy's telling you to do something that's a bit unpleasant, right? Go home, talk to people about it, come back, talk to other people about it. Everyone's scared. It's okay, right? This was not supposed to happen, was it? But it has. So we're all going to act on it together as a Hungerford community, right? You're not on your own. If you think you're on your own, you're not going to do anything, right? The single biggest determinant, right, of civil disobedience is the creation of community. And I don't mean some hippie, you know, all love each other stuff, right? What I mean is, we sit down and we go, you know what, I'm scared doing this, but I'm going to do it if everyone else does it. So let's do it. It's that sort of stuff, right? And it's going to be like good. It's going to be good for you. So I'm going to leave you with this like guy who spoke to me at the April Rebellion in 2019. So, as I've said, I used to be a farmer, and if anyone's a farmer here, or you know a farmer, you know what it's like, right? You work 70 hours a week, you never meet anyone, right, for 20 years, right? I'm not like a natural like extrovert, I'm just doing this because it has to be done, okay? Like the highlight of my week was going to my local town to buy hummus on Saturday. You know what I mean? So when I became semi-famous, inadvertently, in April 2019, for doing this design, all these people were staring at me and looking at me and stuff, and I was going, oh my God. Anyway, this guy came up to me, it's a bit like this guy here, right? It's about the same age, right? Quite burly, you know, don't want to mess with him, sort of type. And he came up to me and said, are you Roger Hallam? And I said, here we go. You know, said, yep. And he said, I've been arrested 3 times in the last 2 weeks. I was going, oh God, you know, his wife's left him or something, I don't know what's going on. And then he said, and that was the best 2 weeks of my life. That's what he said. So, it's all bleak. Thanks very much.
Wow. Take a breath, all right? It's a lot to take in, isn't it? Thank you so much, Roger. I'd just like to add, before I introduce our first personal story, is that nearly 700 people have been arrested in this last month in London. 700. That's a lot of people. It's a lot of people who care about what matters to them and their lives. And one of those people was me. And also, another person was Bill at the back. Put your hand up, because I'm proud of you, Bill. He's not going to, he's shy. I'm really proud of Bill. And as Roger says, it's perfectly doable. In fact, I can tell you with complete honesty, the police treated me hugely professionally. Doesn't happen to everyone, I don't think. Not everyone is as lucky. I'm a white middle-class woman. The stakes are high, but I'm going to be treated well. But it was fine. No sweat. Anyway, that's enough for me. I'm going to introduce Stefania now. So, just quickly, Stefania says of herself. My name is Stefania Moroz. I have been active in Extinction Rebellion, Insulate Britain and Just Stop Oil for the past 3 years. I'm a mum of 2 kids, 7 and 10, and I have been juggling work, family life and the life of an activist from arrests, a short time in prison, preparation for many trials coming down the line, to going out and giving talks to reach out to as many people as possible. I deal with a lot of criticism for what I do, as well as the deafening silence of the vast majority of the middle class community of which I am part. As an immigrant, I could face harsh consequences for my actions, especially in the light of the recent crime and policing bill. Despite it all, I am determined to try and do my best to stop this death march we are on. For all children, not just my own. Okay, take us away.
That's my testimony. Thank you. I didn't expect an introduction. She had this bit from when I came to give a talk locally or somewhere already. I came here tonight thinking I don't want to prepare. I mean, I prepared many ways of presenting myself, but I really wanted to let myself feel again what Roger said, and I feel like this. I feel the grief, so much grief. I've always been one of those, having fun during arrest and having the best time of my life on Insulate Britain, the freedom, away from the kids for a couple of weeks, and just the space and the community. But there's also, to be honest with you, there's so much grief. We've really lost so much, and when I look at my kids, I really struggle. I really struggle when they talk about the future. When they talk about their dreams, it really breaks me. 7 and 10. The 10 years old avoids me sometimes. He knows what I'm doing, but he doesn't want to know much, because he's very clever and he's got a sense. He's got a little sense, and I'm not trying to put too much on them, but they know. They know I've been to prison. They know I get arrested. They know all these things, and I try to communicate what I do in the best positive way, like superpower mom or whatever. But it stays that it's it's fun, but there's also consequences, and there's also sacrifices, and there's also time away from the family, and uncertainty of what's going to happen, especially with the trials. There's all of that, and also the time that is most hard is when I'm away from this community, because that's what keeps me going. When I'm at home and my husband doesn't share much of my enthusiasm, as well as my extended family. I've got a view of me as a bit of a terrorist of some sort. So I mean, I'm not massively supported, and the isolation is what gets me. And right now it's a period that has been tough, and I wanted to share that with you. I've met some young activists who have been self-harming, who thinks there's no hope for the future, who who've been to prison, and prison has been tough for them. It's not been for me, because I don't know, some people are more prepared for certain situations, or they met different situations. But I've met people that really struggled in certain environments and still went out and did it. And I really don't want to abandon the next generation. I feel a sense of responsibility. Having said that, we have a brilliant community, and we are supported along the way with everything. So like, for instance, for the trials to come, I've done nothing. I've got people feeding me information. I'll prepare my little thing to say, but there's people just doing that and supporting me in that. There's people supporting us psychologically. There's all sorts, and when we are together, I feel strong. But yeah, things are not always like that, but it's a tightrope walk. You know, also in our way of dealing with the crisis. If you think about it all the time, like for me it's been recently and it's got me down, then it's difficult to act, it's difficult to find your strength. So we can't think about it all the time in the richness of detail and the realization. We have to bring it with us in a way that is letting us act. And so it's a very fine balance by being petrified and paralyzed by the knowledge, and being freed by the possibility of action through love for one another, because we're going to save ourselves. We're not going to try to save the planet. It's not the planet that needs saving, it's ourselves. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's not easy, is it? Thank you. So finally, I'd like to introduce Heidi Rissenberger, who says of herself, "I'm a PhD student in history and museum visitor host. I've been involved in environmental activism since 2019 and with Just Stop Oil since the start of this year. I've taken part in civil resistance multiple times with Just Stop Oil, including with a group of exclusively LGBT people, to highlight the negative impact of the climate crisis on the LGBT community. In addition to taking direct action, I help teach people the basics of non-violence and help prepare them to take direct action themselves." Heidi.
Thank you all for coming and taking the time out of your evening to be here. I think my story kind of comes in two parts. There's the first part of my fears and worries and the reasons why I feel compelled to take action. And the second part is perhaps the things that enable me to do so. So starting with the reasons that compel me to take action. When I read things on social media or newspaper headlines and articles that tell me about the extent of the climate crisis and the impact that it's having and it will have, it's almost impossible to imagine, because it's so extreme and it's apocalyptic, and it sounds like it should be something that's in some sci-fi movie about the year 2500 or something. It's really hard to grasp hold of. But what I can imagine is the impact in small ways, and particularly on things that I love. I've always been passionate about the environment, about the global ecosystems, the diversity that there is, the whole range from whether it's deserts to savannas to rainforests to mountains, and the idea of losing that, and losing something that's so precious and weird and quirky and diverse and beautiful, and the idea of losing that forever, permanently, it's just, I can't let that happen. When I was younger as a child, I went to Switzerland a lot with my family, and we would go and see things like the glaciers, going around to say the Eiger and the Eiger Glacier, and I see photographs of it now and it's vanishing, and I don't want to have to speak to nephews and nieces that I may have in the future and say, well, there used to be ice and glaciers here and it was beautiful. It had these beautiful greys and blue colours, but we lost it and it's gone forever, and that's it. It's never ever going to come back. I don't want to show photographs of the Amazon rainforest with the trees and the plants that grow in the trees that rely on the different heights and the water and the moisture in the atmosphere and the way that you get rains that come on a daily basis because of the unique ecosystem. I don't want to show photos and say, sorry, we lost it, it's gone, it's not coming back. I also fear for the impact that it will have on humans, whether that's people already suffering in places like the Horn of Africa where there hasn't been rain for years and they're suffering extreme drought, or people in Nigeria or Pakistan whose homes have been flooded, or in the future people in the UK where the wheat harvests have failed for years and years and years, and you can go to the supermarket but there's no food. And there aren't any food banks because there's no food to put in them. I don't want to be in that situation where I open the paper each day and all I can read is more and more stories of people in extreme situations in refugee camps that are overcrowded and fighting that's broken out of resources because there just isn't enough to go round, or the people who have just died because the heat and the humidity has got so much that their internal organs can no longer function. I really don't want that future. And as much as I find it hard to understand the weird, apocalyptic, extreme headlines of newspapers, I can imagine that, and I don't want that. I don't know if we're in a position where we can stop that happening, but I do know that in the future I want to be able to look back and say, I did everything that I could. And I guess the next part of it is things that enable me to take action, knowing that I want to try and do absolutely anything to avoid that future. As I say, I'm a PhD student. I study history is what I did as my undergraduate. It's something that I've been passionate about since I was like yay high. And a lot of stories in history, if you ignore the kings and the queens and the sort of people right up there in society, a lot of it is about ordinary people who decide that something isn't right and they're going to do something about it. And they're going to do it regardless of the cost and regardless of the ability that they think they have or the fear that they feel. And a lot of the time you read accounts and you can tell that people are scared and they're doing it anyway. Or they're desperate and they know that there's very little hope, but they're going to do it anyway. And that could be a peasant woman during the Peasants' Revolt at the end of the 14th century, or a suffragette at the beginning of the 20th century, or a woman in the Netherlands in the 17th century defending her town against the Spanish invasion. They're all stories of people who said that actually it's tough. It's a ridiculous thing that I have to try and do. I don't know if I'll succeed, but I believe it's right to try. And because of that, I think I want to be like that. I want to be someone who said that it was scary, or it was hard, or it looked difficult, but I thought it was right to try, and so I did. As I mentioned, I'm part of the LGBT community, and I took action with another group of LGBT people just in October. And we did that because we recognize as a community, our community is often built on people saying that we have this right, and it's the right to be married to whoever we want, or to sleep with whoever we want, or to be whoever we want to be, and we will fight for that right. And people fought for that in the past, particularly in the 20th century. Think about things like the AIDS crisis, where people were dying but they said it wasn't right and we were going to stand up and do something. And I know that the LGBT community, along with communities like people who are BIPOC, or women, or people who are disabled, they will be the people who will be hit hardest and hit first when we get to a stage of social collapse. If you are a marginalised person in society, or you have less access to common resources or cultural capital, you suffer first when you get to pieces of social collapse. And I don't want my community to suffer like that, which is why I took action with other people in the LGBT community. Because we are following the example of people who came before us, who stood up and took action, and we stood up and took action for the people in the future, or the people now who will be suffering because of climate change and the social collapse that comes with it. The other thing that really inspires me and enables me to take action is being part of a community. Whenever I take action, I am scared. I get really anxious, I feel horrible inside, and I know that I have to do it. And I look around me and I see other people who are prepared to do it, and that gets me forward. Or I remember other people who have also done it and they were scared and they stepped up and they did something. I teach people non-violence, and if anybody does take action, we do try and train people so they understand what they're going in for and they have the tools that they need to maintain non-violent civil disobedience. And I meet people who are GPs or healthcare workers or ex-teachers or just people who have only been a mum, that's all they did, but you know, they're now stepping up for something. There's a whole diverse range of people. And that makes me think that actually I'm not alone in doing this. There are so many other people who are doing it alongside me, who will come after me, who've done something before. which is why I'm asking you to find something that you care about, that you don't want to lose, or that you want to stand up for, and a reason to do it, and to do something, to come with Just Stop Oil and try and take action. And if you're in a position where you're privileged enough, you feel able to be arrested, that's great. Please come and join us. If you think maybe that's not for you, or you're not sure, come and join us anyway. Because there's so many things that you can be involved with. And you never know, you might find that actually, yeah, this is my role here. These are the skills I have that I can contribute. Thank you.